No pun intended. Episode number 57. Matt, it's just you and I tonight. How's it going tonight?
Good, thanks, Jesse. How are you doing?
I am doing great. I had a dentist appointment today. Guess how long it had been since I've been to the dentist?
Oh no. Well, I know how long it should be.
How
All right.
long how long do you normally go between dentist appointments?
You don't want to know. I'm guessing for you, it's gonna be 3 years.
Over. I haven't
Really?
I haven't been in 5 years. So I last went to the dentist. It was in like it would have been like September or something of 2019. And then my 6 month came around when you're supposed to do like the cleaning, but it was
Yeah.
right in the heart of COVID and everything was shut down. I'm like, oh, I'm not going there. Like obviously I'm not going to the dentist. And then
Yeah.
I just never rescheduled it.
Right. It just falls off your calendar. Right.
Yeah, right.
That happened to me for a stretch, like when I moved out of Rochester, moved up to the cities. I didn't have a dentist and I just kind of forgot about it. And then one day it was like 3 years later and I'm like, oh, I should go to the dentist now. And I was terrified of what they were going to say.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I was scared too, but luckily no cavities, no gum disease, so I'm cruising.
Whoa,
How,
good.
how often do you go to the dentist, Matt?
So a couple years ago, I switched because for my job, we have this reimbursement account.
Yeah.
Did you have one of those when you worked for Mayo?
Yeah, there's two of them. There's like the I can't remember the name of them, but there's like the one you don't get back if you don't use it. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, that's the flexible spending account, I think.
Yeah, the FSA
Um,
versus the HSA.
but then there's the MRA. It's the Mayo
Okay.
reimbursement account. So this
Okay.
goes towards dental and vision. You get like $1,100 a year, and it keeps rolling over and accumulating. And I think the cap is like 3K or something. I don't know. I've never hit the cap. Um, but if you don't have any cavities and you're just doing regular checkups for your eyes, you never hit the max. So I started going to the dentist every 4 months and I
Oh wow.
love it. So it's 4 months and I do just a cleaning and then the next 4 months cleaning and a dentist and then the next four just cleaning. Repeat that cycle.
Well, oh, Mass has found a dentist hack. That's great.
Yeah,
Have you been following, or did you follow the Tata Steel tournament at all?
a little bit, not as much as you, but I do feel like it was one of the more exciting classical tournaments in recent times. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I do not really like to follow the top level events, but for whatever reason, this one kind of just like you kind of just get swept up in the story of it. So Gakesh got off to like a kind of a strong start, kind of a slow start. He was doing okay. But then he really kicked it into gear and pulled ahead, like in the like rounds. Probably I'm just kind of guessing here, but rounds maybe 6 through 10, he really pulled ahead. But then in the last couple rounds, Prague just kept winning, and Gakesh kept drawing. Then going into round 13, Gakesh and Prague were tied at the top of the leaderboard, and they both lost. And so they still had enough points to go into the tiebreaker. So after 13 rounds, they both finished with 8.5 out of 13, which is a very good result. Prague picked up 17 rating points. Kakesh picked up 10 rating points. And Fabi had a pretty tough event. Fabi dropped 20 points. What's crazy is Eric Geisy got off to an absolute nightmare start. I think he lost like I don't know, he lost a ton of rating points, but in the last two rounds he beat Prague and Eric Geisy. I'm pretty sure in round 12. Uh,
No,
no,
he beat
he beat
Noterbeck
Noterbeck. Yeah,
and
Noterbeck.
Guquette.
Yeah, so what a turnaround for him. But even still, dropped a lot of rating. He dropped, let's see, about 20 rating points, 25 rating points.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
he gained 9 points from those last two wins combined. So it was about 4.5 points per win. And he was playing a spoiler because those guys ended up in second and third place. Like Arjun really had a big impact in the final results.
oh yeah, for sure. Because if he didn't beat either of those guys, they would have, possibly won the tournament.
Right.
Um, yeah, but uh, what's interesting about this whole tournament, so they went to tie breaks, and Prague actually won the tie breaks. So the first game, Gakesh won, and then Prague won on demand, and then he won. It must have been an Armageddon for the championship. He won with Black.
What are your thoughts on that winning in an Armageddon?
I think you have to end it at some point, so it makes sense for an Armageddon. I saw a tweet. It's like, are Prague and Gakesh allowed to share the title, or is it only for like some special people who get to decide they want to
I
split the
saw that
title?
too. Yeah. It's just if you wear jeans or something to the event.
Yeah, right.
Um,
But they did play it out like gentlemen.
here's a question for you. So I can see on chess.com what the time was for the bidding.
Mm.
How much time would you take against 3 minutes if you had the white pieces, knowing that black had draw odds with 3 minutes?
So if I had the white pieces or the black
Yeah.
pieces,
You're playing white.
yeah.
You got to bid on an amount of time you would take with the white pieces. And I think it's three, I want to say it's 3 plus 1. I think they had a 1 second increment.
Okay. So if you play with white, you bid for the lower time and you need to make a draw to win.
You need to win. You just need to win outright as white. It looks like that's
Oh,
how they did it.
oh, really? So they did it backwards because normally black bids, right?
Yeah, but I'm seeing white's clock started lower than black's.
Oh,
Black
okay.
started with 3 minutes.
Okay. I wouldn't. I would think I'd rather have black. I think I would just bid 3 minutes with white.
Oh,
What do you think?
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that is interesting. I don't know. Or was this not an Armageddon game?
Maybe it wasn't an Armageddon. I don't know.
But it looks like white started with 2 minutes and 33 seconds versus 3 minutes. Prague.
Hmm. Yeah, I followed the event, but I did not follow the last two rounds because it was over the weekend, which was unfortunate. But yeah, I see. Yeah, Prague started. Move one was 2 minutes and 33 seconds. Interesting. Well, but he might. Well, yeah, he did have white, so I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure what happened there.
27 minute, 27 second think on 1d4. That's possible.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe he was late.
That's true too.
Late to the tiebreaker. But in the overall standings, which is very, very cool that Gakesh passed up Fabi. So now Gakesh is world number three. He's about 15 points behind Naka, pretty distant, about 50 points behind, or yeah, about 50 points behind Magnus. So a ways to go there.
Right.
And Fabi dropped 20 points to world number four, and he's 2783.
I have a hypothetical question for you. So, looking at the top 10 in the world, if you take the median age and split it, and take those top 5 older players against the top 5 younger players in a match, who would you pick to come out on top right now? Like, do you think the young guys in the top 8 could beat the older guys, or the top 10? I mean,
Is this just like an Olympiad format? The top five oldest
yeah,
play the top. I'd probably take the young guys, honestly.
I think I would too. I mean, Magnus is the only one that stands out. Obviously, like
Yeah,
someone has to play Magnus, and it's maybe Gukesh. But then after that, it's like you got Arjun, Noterbeck, Prague, Ali Reza, and Wei Yi. I mean, that's actually 6. So one of them is probably too old. But I mean, that's
yeah.
just
So Wei Yi plays with the old guys.
right. And then Nepomniachtchi is in 10. So Wei Yi and Nepomniachtchi would kind of be struggling probably to keep up with the younger guys.
Yeah, yeah. And then like below that is Wesley So, Levon. Those guys seem like they're definitely past their like they kind of missed their window.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then 13 is Vichy, crazy. He just stays right there. I love that.
Isn't he the FIDE vice president now? I think I read that on Reddit.
You go. I get. I don't know. I hadn't heard that.
Because he was supposed to play in the Freestyle World Championship tour, but
Oh,
then
okay.
he backed out, and there was a tweet about it where someone essentially said, like, well, he is now the FIDE vice president, and there's sort of a conflict of interest with FIDE events and the freestyle events.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I could see that. Um, yeah. Fabiano moves to fourth place. Fourth place. Erigaisi down to fifth place. Noterbeck Prague actually moved all the way up to the top 10, so he's 2758 now, world number seven, ahead of Ali Reza Faruja. So great event for him. Yeah, Noterbeck just half a point away from qualifying for the tie breaks, but these guys are on tears over the last year. Gakesh is plus 44 points, Eric Geisy plus 38 points, Noterbeck plus 30 points, Prague plus 11 points. So these guys are just killing it. Levon plus 22 points for whatever's worth.
I mean, I love to see it. And honestly, Levon, like, he's so close to that top 10 still. And I don't know, did you watch the lie detector video on chess.com with Levon?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
I felt a little bit bad for him because he was essentially saying he's sort of the last player of his generation at the top. Like if you take out Anand and Dominguez Perez is age 41, but he's not Dominguez Perez hasn't really ever been in that like elite group, at least that I can
Yeah.
recall. Aronian's the last one, like over 40, that's even close to that top group. But he said he doesn't get a lot of invites.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of sad. I think of what's the Russian guy's name? His username is Paul Borta. I'm totally blanking.
Oh, Svidler.
Yes, Fiddler. Yeah, I feel like he's kind of in that same category. He's probably around 40. Uh, yeah,
And
Hari Krishna, he's 38. He's up there too.
for a long time, Svidler was, just sitting around that 2750 mark, which is kind of right where Aronian is too. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know what Svidler is now, though. Let me look.
yeah. Also, Shakhriyar Mamadreyev, he's right there. 38 years old. Hikaru, 37. I guess we forgot about him, but yeah, he's getting up there too.
And Svidler has dropped. He's 2696 now.
Yeah.
And he was born in 1976.
Okay, so
He's
yeah, so
almost
he's
50.
almost 50. Yeah, well, um, yeah, that's wild. But yeah, good tournament. It was really fun to follow. I guess next tournament coming up is going to be the freestyle chess, the tournament which shall not be named. That starts in a couple days. Did we say February 7th earlier? It goes the 7th to the 15th.
Yeah, we were looking at the betting market on this. I think it
Yeah,
was 7th through the 15th.
yeah. And if you check out the betting market, okay, don't bet, but if you do,
Yeah.
we were both saying that Gakesh at plus 2,500 is an absolute steal. That's like a great value.
Yeah, and 7th through 14th, just small correction. Is At least that's what it says on Polymarket.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Magnus is a favorite. I don't know if I would take him as a favorite. I would probably bet against Magnus winning. Uh, but who do you pick? I mean, Fabi's right there. Gakesh. I would probably pick Gakesh if I had to, if I was a betting man, which I'm not. But plus 2,500 on the world champ, who is like very hungry right now. I think you got to take Gakesh.
I would also pick Gukesh at plus 2,500. I don't know why he's that far down in the odds. I mean, why would you pick Ali Reza over Gukesh right now? Maybe it's just based on the time control. Like this must be a faster event, and Gukesh, prefers classical. That's the
Yeah.
only reason I could think of.
And if you're betting between Gakesh and Fedoseev to win the whole thing, why would you pick Fedoseev at the same odds? That's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. It's got to be
Um,
time control based because Fedoseev is like a blitz expert.
okay, yeah, maybe it's just a quicker event. I guess I haven't seen the time control on it. I have not really been following all the drama that is surrounding the freestyle chess, so I will let other podcasts fill you in on that because I really have not had the really not had the brain cells to even think about it because it doesn't matter all that much to me. But do you know what's going on there with the FIDE and the freestyle chess? Just like the high level overview.
My understanding is FIDE wants to invite all of these top players to their events, their qualifiers for the candidates and things.
Hmm.
But freestyle chess has so much hype and money that they're kind of just stealing players away. I mean, the money talks, and if people are getting paid more to play freestyle, then it makes the candidates look less important because it's like, hey, all these top players are going and doing their own thing with Magnus. I mean, what is FIDE at that point?
Yeah.
And you're kind of a newer chess fan in terms of like big picture chess, but there was that stretch when Kasparov left FIDE.
Hmm.
And FIDE was declaring world champions with like knockout tournaments. So they had like people winning the world championship that were Ding Liren level in the rankings, right? Like, oh, this guy's
Terrible.
30th in the world or something. He just won the world championship this year. And just kind of like ridiculous champions back and forth. And yeah, I think they're kind of afraid that something like that might happen where they just don't have the top players anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, so they just kind of want to keep their like dominance basically.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
okay.
so.
I guess that makes sense. Um, yeah, that was one thing that was interesting about the Nate Solon podcast. That was a great episode, by the way. We had Nate on last week. That episode just went out like a few days ago, even. I think we just released it on Friday. But he has a lot of similar chess improvement ideas as us. He likes blitz. But one topic that came up is like the sponsorships in chess. Like chess seems like he said like anytime you turn on the TV, you can't see a commercial without a chessboard in the background or like someone thinking, and it's like chess is associated with like thinking hard and like intellectual and like outsmarting your opponents. You think that a lot of brands would want to associate themselves with chess. You would think that there would be kind of like more sponsorship money in it in general, don't you think?
Yeah, and I don't know what it's going to take, but I remember there was a time when a Pepsi ad had chess in it in the Super Bowl, and Gary Kasparov was in the commercial.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
It was a man versus machine commercial, and all I can recall from the commercial was like there's a couple different types of like robots or machines against him, and then at the end, a Pepsi machine I think launched a Pepsi at him like out the bottom of the machine, and it like hit him in the gut, and he goes flying backwards.
Okay, we're gonna have to find that commercial and see if we can like overlay it or something.
Yeah, let's
Um,
clip it into the podcast for people
yeah.
watching on YouTube.
Okay, I'll see if I can find it. Um, Well, it's funny. It's kind of like backwards, where like a company wants chess in their product, but they don't want to actually sponsor a chess event. Like, I mean, Pepsi, you have a huge marketing budget. Why don't you just throw $1 million at a candidates tournament or one of Magnus's events? Why not? What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, I mean, chess right now has a very positive image, like more so than ever. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, and if you look at like even the SCC events, those can have 100,000 viewers at any point. And you like I don't know, you compare that to TV. I don't know how much like people are paying attention to TV commercials, but it's like average TV viewership has been going down and down. How much are you paying for a 30-second ad slot when you can get many minutes of that on like I don't know a chess event? I don't know. Any marketers are out there, you got to start listening to this stuff because I think this would work.
Do you think the problem is just a, a lack of excitement, or do you think it's more sponsors want to see like the first big sponsor step up and then all of a sudden the floodgates open?
I don't know. I think it's an excitement thing because these long events don't really have like these moments. Like in the UFC, there's moments of like the knockout or the submission, or baseball has home runs or
Yeah,
dunks. Like it's hard to get excited about like a smother mate or something if you're not familiar with like what that even is, you know?
that's true. Yeah, it doesn't have the physical dominance that you see where it's just like, oh, look at this crazy soccer kick, it pierces the corner of the goal. Like you said, oh, here's a smothered mate on the board.
Yeah.
It's a limited audience.
Yeah, I think that's probably the issue. Is like it's very slow, it's very calm, but that could be an appeal of it too. Like parents everywhere are trying to get their kids to slow down. They're trying to like get their kids off of screens. I don't know. I think over the board chess could be great for that.
I agree. And maybe that's the angle. Kids, we want kids to get off devices and I mean, you could play chess on your device, but play some physical chess with the board and, play with your parents or your friends and in person and yeah, just enjoy kind of the classic game.
Yeah. Is there anything else from that Nate interview that stuck out to you?
Yes, the opening training aligned exactly with strong chess. And the whole idea is something that I'm excited to try myself. You just sort of build an opening file starting from scratch. And every time you see a new move, you put it into your file and just keep updating as you go. And I think it makes a lot of sense and it aligns with our kind of chess goals principles where we say, we only want to show you lines that you see in practice. Well, what better way than to do this? Now, you could argue it might be better to start with your 100 lines and then start building a file instead of just like starting from, node one and trying to like learn lines as you go.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of it.
Yeah. I think his premise was you kind of like learn an opening, and then as you're playing it for real, like when your opening line ends, then you like make a new, like then you start a new file, and then you can kind of like have all these middle games in your entire opening file. And he was saying too, like a lot of the times, if you're reviewing this often enough, you'll see people make the same mistake over and over, and you'll have like
Right.
5 or 6 split schemes in those lines. And like, yeah, I mean, maybe I blundered a piece later on, but I was completely winning here in all the games because it's such an easy mistake to make.
That was a really strong point, I thought, too. There's the more you see all those types of positions, the more comfortable you're going to be when that really matters in a classical game because If you only play classical, you're going to have lines in your openings that you've never even faced before over the board, and you've only just studied it, in training.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's why blitz chess is so important too. He talked about that a lot. And there's not a whole lot of other people outside of us saying that, like that
Yeah.
blitz chess can be so good for you. But you get to see a bunch of these positions, and as long as you're looking through it after, like it's going to be helping you, even if it's 5 minutes for the whole game.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think blitz training as your primary tool can be perfectly fine, and then sprinkle in rapid and classical games because you can just get so many games in with blitz, right? You could be at the auto dealership waiting for your oil change or something and just like fire up chess.com on your iPad or phone and be practicing blitz and learning through your openings. Whereas like a rapid game, that might already be too slow to do something like that, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now we get a time crunch. I can't sit around and wait for 10 more minutes.
Yeah, and the stakes are so low too. Like if you just have a terrible blitz game, you just throw it away and go to the next blitz game. If you're playing a rapid game, like you spend 25 minutes and then you just like make a terrible blunder and it's all over, you're like, well, I could have learned so much if I didn't make that stupid blunder.
Right. And I would even extrapolate this probably not until your rating's around 2000 plus, but you could use Bullet to train in that same way that we're talking about Blitz, where you could say, okay, let's say it's 1+1 time control or 1+0. How well do I have my openings memorized? Am I seeing some new move? And then just one step further, do I know the right plans when we
Hmm.
very first get out of that opening knowledge branching point?
Yeah, and it also helps you just very quickly have that board awareness to know like what pieces undefended of mine and my opponents can you make the quick tactics, and it's like intuition training, opening practice, tactics training, and like scrambles.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's more than zero value there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of goes along with studying puzzles too, right? Like you don't
Mhm.
just do slow calculation puzzles. You build your intuition. You do quick puzzles too and combine the two,
Yeah,
thinking fast and slow.
yeah, exactly right. The two systems of solving tactics, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Old school ChessGoals blog post. I'll have to link that. That's one you have to dust off. That one's been in the.
That's a good transition to what else we were talking about. There's a book I'm reading right now called The Gap in the Gain. What do you know about this book so far?
The gap in the gain. I know one thing about this book, and that is you are reading it. So what's going on with that book? I have no idea.
You pretty much know the whole gist, I think it, because I've
No.
told you one sentence maybe of what it's about, and you can pretty much set the book down after that. But essentially, it's saying if you focus on the gap, you're focused on that gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And the problem is when you get to that spot you want to be, there's always a new spot you want to be.
Oh yeah.
Um, and sometimes you can use that as motivation, right, to reach a new goal.
Mhm.
But oftentimes it's the opposite effect where we just feel bad, like, oh, I'm not happy until I reach that spot.
Yeah.
So if you focus on the gain, you actually look at where you started and where you are now. Like, here's all the progress I've made. And you don't even have to just focus on a numeric rating for that, which I think is really powerful. You can say, okay, let's say I'm 1600 today and I was 1700 a year ago. But if I know, like, okay, my puzzles are a lot stronger right now, I've
Hmm.
learned a new opening system, I'm much more dominant, I'm comfortable playing the Sicilian, I'm better in time pressure, so on, like, whatever your takeaways are, that's what you should focus on. Like, I'm better at certain things in chess now than I was 1 year ago or than I was 3 months ago. And don't worry about the rating as much. And I think that's really powerful. And I'm hoping to write a blog post soon for chess.com. Or, I'm sorry, an email for chess goals, not a blog post.
For
We talked about the
chess.com.
blog post earlier on chess.com. Email for chess goals, like kind of highlighting this and maybe kind of making a graphic to explain it for our readers.
Yeah, so there you go. If you want to get on the emails, that is chessgoals.com/newsletter. I think we haven't shouted that out in a while, but I think that's the URL, and you'll get
Yeah.
on our emails.
Half the
And
time we throw that URL as chess.com as well. So
yeah, no, we do. Us and chess.com are maybe too intertwined at this point. Just kidding. We don't really have any say at all in chess.com other than we're friendly with them and they're friendly with us. And let me tease out a couple of things. A few people from chess.com will be coming on the podcast in the near future. I'm not going to drop
Yeah.
names, but I'm pretty sure they're names you have heard of. One of them has recently written a book, so we'll see if we
Hmm.
can get Danny on the podcast at some point. We have verbal confirmation, but we haven't scheduled anything with him yet. Um, okay, so in this book you're talking about, I've also heard of that called the arrival fallacy, where if you're like let's say you're starting a business like Chess Goals or something, you're like, man, if we could just get to like $5,000 a month and I could quit my job and it would all be good. And then you get to $5,000 a month, and you're like, man, if I could just like hire a personal assistant to handle all the stuff that I don't
Yeah.
do, then I've made it. Like,
Right.
man, if I could actually just like cover my mortgage on top of all this, like net, then I've made it. But it's like you're never ever gonna get there.
No, you're 100% right. And it's the same with everything in life. Um, and there's a book out that I want to read right now. It's called The Anxious Generation. Have you heard of this book?
Yeah, I read that one.
You read it? Did you like it?
Yeah. I liked it. I think it kind of missed the mark in a few places, but overall, I think it's like a net good for society to take those principles. Actually,
And the reason I'm interested in it is because of social media's effect on our brains.
yeah.
And a lot of social media, according to the gap in the gain, is putting us in the gap, right? You are comparing yourselves to people around the world in everything you do. And it's just not realistic. Like, oh, I run a 6.5 minute mile while I just saw this 12-year-old run a 5 minute mile on Facebook, right? It's like, well, maybe you would have been the best runner at your high school.
Yeah.
And back then you weren't looking on social media. And now you're like, well, I'm still really slow because I can just see all these other people out there.
Yeah, I remember seeing a post from Zuck who ran like an 18-minute 5K. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, how can you just whip
Yeah.
off 6 minute miles? Like, that's crazy.
I mean, he's got the resources, I guess, to
Yeah,
do it.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, a big premise of that book that I agree with is that we vastly overprotect our children in the real world and way underprotect them online. Like a lot of people just give their kids free range for everything.
Hmm.
Um, Me as a dad, I'm very protective of my kids. Like none of my kids have phones, and they'll have like I don't know an hour of iPad time a week or something like that. But that's kind of it.
No, that's really good. And with the four boys, like they can play together too, which is awesome. Like,
Yeah,
go outside
at
and
least
play today.
at least they can play together without hurting each other most of the time, which is kind of nice.
Not practicing the UFC moves.
Yeah, right. We did. Did I tell you that we got him a punching bag for Christmas?
I don't think you did. No,
Oh yeah, so we have a punching bag for him. So and they're like in the winter when they're getting really antsy, we're like, all right, you gotta punch the bag 100 times before dinner.
I like that. That's a great idea. Blow off
Yeah,
some steam. Do
yeah.
you own that book then? The Anxious Generation.
I have the audio book, so I can't really like lend it to you,
Ah,
unfortunately.
okay,
Oh,
okay.
actually, we do have a copy of it here, though. Sorry, we do have a copy of it.
Oh, can I borrow it sometime?
Yeah, sure. All
Nice. We'll
yours, but you
trade.
have to
I'll
give it
trade you
back.
for a chess book.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'd take all of Matt's chess books and never give them back.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll lend it to you sometime. I forgot that we actually do have a physical copy of it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Any other topics you wanted to go over today?
I don't think so. So we might have a quiet week or two in terms of the top level events. So if you guys have topics you want us to talk about too, drop it in the comments or send us an email. We're always open to discussing new ideas or kind of the Q&A type topics.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. We'll have to do another Ask Me Anything. I think we did one with episode 50. Uh, right? Is that right? Episode 50, I think we did. So that was a couple
Sounds
months
right.
ago already. Um, so yeah, we will for sure set another one of those up. We probably have a live one, a live episode due pretty soon too. So maybe we'll combine a live episode with a Q&A episode. That could be fun. We'll try to get a guest on next week. We have a few in the pipeline that have agreed to come on, but we haven't gotten like scheduled anything with them or reached out to them yet. So hopefully one of these people can make it on next week.
Do you feel like we're fair and balanced with all the chess.com employees coming on the podcast soon?
No, not really, but that's okay. I mean, we can of course have people on that are not affiliated with chess.com. It's not anything like that. So we've had like Azel on, who's more of a chessable guy. We've had who else have we had on? I guess James isn't really affiliated with anyone. Just
Yeah. Dane,
strong
Dane,
chess. What's that?
I think Strong Chess does some work for chess.com now. I mean, the problem is chess.com is too big. They own Chessable even now.
Yeah,
So,
no,
it's like, how do you avoid chess.com? You really can't.
yeah. But yeah, we'll have anyone on that wants to talk to us. Even Vlad. Vlad is very anti-chess.com, but we'll talk to you. Hans Niemann, if you're listening, come on the podcast. We'll have you on. We'd love to have you on. Alrighty, that is going to do it for this week of No Pun Intended. That is episode number 57. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.